Hey, Fox, urgent reports of a second shooting in Copenhagen, Denmark, just hours after a terror attack left one person dead and 3 police officers wounded at a crowded cafe. And Fox Mideast and terrorism analyst Waleed Faris joins us now live on the phone. Thank you for joining us.
Sure, Heather. Thank you for having me.
The first incident, as we said, it occurred at a cafe, and almost immediately the officers or investigators on the scene were calling it a terror attack. What would make them call it a terror attack so quickly?
Because, number one, Heather, those who were targeted were political, were controversial, have been before threatened, were on a jihadi threat list, including the cartoonists, but also other activists. And there were people at the cafe, that is, discussing the issue of the jihadi threat against free speech. With all that background, plus an attack by firearms, the conclusion was at the level of government in Denmark that this is most likely a terror attack.
Mm-hmm. And can you tell us a little bit more about this free speech group?
This is a group which is now all over Europe. It has begun in reaction to the violence against the early cartoonists 5-6 years ago in Denmark. These cartoons that depicted Prophet Muhammad in different forms that angered many militants around the world. Those who are defending free speech are arguing that even though there are cartoons that could be offensive, this is part of free speech. So the reaction has been, as we saw, the most dramatic part of the reaction was in Paris a few weeks ago, the bloody massacre at Charlie Hebdo. So now you have across Europe a whole network of activists who are saying we need to have free speech no matter what that speech is. And of course the jihadists are reaction trying to silence them.
And the artist that you were referencing there, his name is Lars Vilks, and he was inside the cafe at the time. And although it has not been confirmed, he says that he does believe he was the target in that shooting, and he also believes that it was inspired by the Charlie Hebdo incident that you're talking about. So do you think that this was a copycat incident?
It is more than a copycat incident. It is basically targeting any movement, because now this free speech network is as a movement of resistance against the jihadists. Vilks himself, of course, was a target. He was under police protection. But the event itself was not a lecture he was delivering to the public. It was a meeting by many people like-minded like himself who were organizing themselves to conduct demonstrations later. So it seemed that those who have attacked knew ahead of time what was the agenda, the political agenda of that meeting, and that brings the level of these attacks to a much higher level than it was before. This is not just a random attack against a group. This is an organized one with information, intelligence about the political activities of that movement.
So do you believe that the second shooting incident happened about 45 minutes ago, now going on an hour, about 2 miles away, could have been related? That was happened outside the main synagogue there in that area.
Well, what did Paris teach us? That there's always a possibility of a second incident happening at the first one. It could be the result of police ongoing counterterrorism operation, or it could be a copycat. That would apply to the copycat possibility of another jihadist who heard about the first event, who wanted to do like Colin Bali in France. Also, their part in the attack against this time, a synagogue, which is highly symbolical for the jihadist movement.
All right, Waleed Faris joining us with his take on what is happening in Copenhagen. Thank you so much for your insight. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
So just to repeat for you, there have been 2 shootings that have happened in Copenhagen today. One just before 4 p.m., another just about an hour ago. Police say 3 people were wounded in the first incident. We did have a report where 1 was killed, including 2 police officers who were wounded. And then that happened in a cafe. And then about 2 miles away, a second shooting outside a synagogue. 1 person shot in the head and 3 officers wounded in that incident. That would be the second incident. Investigators not saying that the 2 are related, but the suspect, who was described as a male between 25 and 30 years old from the first shooting incident, was on the run, and there are no reports that he has been arrested. We'll stay with Fox News for continuing coverage of the 2 shootings today in Denmark. We'll be right back with more.